Hi everybody, I'm Bill Sanders and this is Watch Art Sci, the art and science of watch collection. Today I'm going to talk about, sort of as an update as much as possible, on FP Journe watches, one of my very favorite brands of watches. Now, what we're going to be looking at for the most part is from a group called the Classique group, or collection, Classique collection. And just about all of the watches we'll look at, not all of them, are either from that collection or versions from that collection. So let's get started. Now, the first one, let's start with caliber 1304, which is a caliber that this is my Chronomet Supering in platinum. And one of the things that are unique about FP Journe is that he uses gold plates and bridges on the movement, and it's just a nice thing to have. The caliber 1304 has dual barrels in parallel, which means that they move together to help each other to keep constant force. I put this blue band on it. I think it comes with a black band or something else. Now, these are three examples of what essentially are versions of the Chronomet Supering. They usually refer to it as by the code number CS. The most popular one is called the Chronomet Blue. And originally, it was sort of an entry-level watch, but it became so popular. It has a tantalum case on it. Very tough, so it's a very substantial watch. The only difference between it and the Chronomet Supering models is that it doesn't have the power reserve indicator. By the way, all of these are hand wound. And one of the comments about the movement, which has the same movement all of these, that FP Journe noted, he said they're inspired by the 19th century marine chronometry. I always say that wrong. Chronometry means, and this is basically the reason that that's important, is because back then that was how they were able to find out where they were on the latitude. And so it became very important to have a watch that was accurate. And one of the things about this is sort of a little idiosyncrasy. The power reserve indicator, when it's filled up, it's 0. And when it's at the bottom, it's, I think it's 50 something. And it means that it hasn't been wound for how many, as the numbers increase, it's sort of like you're in more trouble if you don't get this thing wound up and accurate, because we'll get lost if you don't. Most power reserve indicators are the opposite. They have zero when you're finished, when it's all wound out, and they start off at 100 or whatever they start off at. Okay, so this is probably the most popular and multiple watches that there are. The second one, and again, this is sort of the newer versions of all of these watches. This is called the Automatique caliber 1303 or 1300.3. And the thing about this particular caliber in these watches, they're automatics. They used to be called the Octa line, but now call them what they are. It's really an automatic. Most FP Journe watches were hand wound, and even with the automatics, they still like to have the frequency of 21,600 semi-oscillations per hour. This particular one has a 160-day power reserve, and that's because it has the mainspring, and the automatic is a meter long. I mean, big long mainspring that's wound up in there. And so you're going to see this caliber again and again in a lot of the watches that are automatic, and each one has something a little different to it, as we'll see. Now, here again is the caliber 1300.3, except it's got a moon phase. It's an automatic, and these are simply different styles. They have one called the Lune Havana, and that's sort of this tobacco colored dial to it with sort of a yellow cream almost hands. The standard Lune is a salmon background. They have them in gold and platinum and so forth. And then finally over here is what they call the Divine. Now, if we look at the prices on these, they're pretty pricey. The prices have gone up significantly since the pandemic. And yeah, maybe they'll find some that are more affordable eventually. Now, this is the Perpetual calendar, Chronomet Perpetual. And underneath all of this is that 1300.3 again, except now it has all of these discs on it and these other functions. So the caliber, the base caliber here is a very, as a base to it, is very flexible and versatile. Now, this is what was said about the Perpetual calendar. It says the Perpetual calendar with the instantaneous jump, unidirectional automatic winding. By the way, in the 1300, one of the things the newer ones have is unidirectional on the rotor. They used to be bidirectional and go either way, but turns out that unidirectional, we're just going one way for the rotor, is more efficient. And here are a couple examples of their Perpetual calendar, 82,000 and 85,000. They're very expensive. All of these watches are. But they're also incredibly good quality. Now, the next two, now this is the Chronomet Optimum, has been my sort of grail watch, and it's got a grail price to it, 125,000. So anyway, the way this works, the reason I like the Optimum so much, it has what's called a remontoire égalité, and the remontoire égalité is a little thing that rewinds the watch as it unwinds, and it's got the big mainspring is unwinding, but then it gets to a little thing that rewinds itself so that there's a constant force. As the mainspring unwinds, the force changes. Whereas by rewinding this little remontoire égalité, it keeps the constant force. Caliber 1510, this is hand wound, 70 hours, frequency again is 21,600 semi-oscillations per hour. Now, the Chronomet Resonance, one of my favorite, this is my resonance. There's been a big change. First of all, the new one, and see on this one, you wind it by removing, this is the top, let me take it off here. This is the original one. This one is from 2002. The winding crown is right up here. And so what I have to do is take this top band off to wind it and set it, and then I just put it back on again. It's got a quick release on it. The other thing about this is before 2005, FP Journe watches, they have brass plates and bridges on the movement rather than the gold ones. They didn't start the gold ones until 2005. And so this is one of the oddities. These are far rarer than the gold ones, so they become more valuable. Anyway, so one of the changes they had, I think it's a great idea. They moved the winding crown from here over to about 1 o'clock. And or more like, I guess it would be 2 o'clock. That's one thing. Then they added that remontoire égalité, which is my favorite additional function to any watch in the world. I really like that. Mine is just a plain resonance. A resonance watch is one. It's really sort of to demonstrate the physics of resonance. And what this was wound, I don't know, several hours ago. And I don't know if you can see it, but the second hands are exactly together. And this is because they have really, there are two little watches in there. And the balance wheels are close enough so that they go into resonance. Now, the way resonance works is that it started with two pendulums, and so if you think of a balance wheel going around, it's one semi-oscillation back to another semi-oscillation. It has a similar movement as the pendulums, and so they were able to achieve resonance on this. And so it does a couple things. It keeps the timing very steady, and it also cuts out resonance that can interfere with the precision of your watch. Really an amazing watch. They changed on the original. The two dials were identical, but what people were doing, since they can be set independently, they were treating the watch like a dual time, and that didn't go over too well. The purpose of the watch was to demonstrate resonance. Here you can see that they've changed it. They have the one on the right, the dial on the right is the original with 1 through 12, and then the one on the left is 1 through 24. So you have you still have resonance, but it's, instead of the two dials being identical, they're not. One's 24 hours, one's 12 hours. But still, I think it's really an incredible watch. That's my thing. They are expensive now, 125,000, 142,000. I got mine before they were that expensive. They're wonderful watches. So, okay. The next two are, again, they're over $250,000, $257,000 and $265,000. Caliber 1408 and caliber 1519. The repetition Supering is basically a minute repeater, and it's got a little up at between 9 and 10 o'clock. There's a little gong that rings, or a little chime, I guess you'd call it. The tourbillon Supering is really a neat one. It has a vertical tourbillon, and most tourbillons are flat, and you get a little round thing, and you watch your tourbillon in this little cage. Apparently, it didn't work quite as well as they wanted, because the tourbillon in a pocket watch was always in the same position, whereas with a wristwatch you're moving it all over the place. And so what they did, or what F.P. Journe did anyway, he changed the orientation of the tourbillon from sort of this flat to a vertical. And so, as you can see on in the picture, it looks a little different than the other one. This watch is called the Astronomic Supering. It's caliber 1619, and the watches cost $1 million. Well, $1,019,760 to be exact. This watch is sort of an ultimate watch in so many ways. It has a tourbillon with a remontoire égalité. It has a minute repeater, sidereal hours and minutes. A sidereal is based on when the vernal equinox passes the upper meridian. It has an equation of time, a second time zone, moon phases, sunrise and sunset, and a natural deadbeat second. This is really an amazing watch. This is an entire watch collection in a single watch. Really beautiful watch too. Now, those were all in the classique category. Now, the next ones are, for the most part, they're some version of the ones that are in the classique, but not all of them. Now this first one, this is from Line Sport. And the Line Sports are for more real sports watches. I think the original one was created because there was a runner who loved F.P. Journe watches, but he said, these things are gold or platinum, and they're a little heavy. He says, you make a lighter one, and he made one out of aluminum. And I think that aluminum, I don't know if that worked as well as he wanted, so they moved to titanium for the watches, which is much lighter and much stronger. These three had automatic reserve. This is simply the 1303. It's an automatic watch, the old Octa. Centigraph. This is a chronograph with a 1506 movement in it, F.P. Journe movements, 70,740. And finally, there's a chronograph Rattrapant. This one is 73,000, and it's a chronograph with the Rattrapant, which is a second timing that you can set up. Now, this next one, I have Elegant 48. I suppose I could have put just Elegant, because they really come in two. They come in 48 and 40. But there are so many varieties of this watch. Now, this is a quartz watch and you can, if you flip it over in the back, you can see the circuitry that was made by F.P. Journe. He didn't put in somebody else's quartz, but he had one. And the thing about it is, it's 32,768 hertz, not semi-oscillations, but hertz, which is a whole lot of semi-oscillations. And what he did, originally this was made for women, and he wanted a quartz watch. He figured, he wanted to do something different with it. And so he made it so that he put in this little rotor down around 4 o'clock. And what the rotor does is that while you're moving and you're going along, the rotor keeps the main electrical circuits going. Now, when you stop after, I don't know, a half hour or so, it shuts down, except it keeps just enough going so it's keeping track of the time, but it's not moving the hands, and that's what takes up a lot of the energy from the battery, or the battery used to run the quartz. Now, like I said, originally this was a woman's watch, but guys wanted one, so they came out with I don't know what the size was originally, and it may have been that big 40 millimeter one, and then they had diamonds and other kinds of jewelry in it to a much more feminine look to it. But then they just came out with a straight up titanium one at 40 millimeters, and then another one at 48 millimeters. This one with the blue, you can't tell the difference. I mean, other than the fact that one is 40 millimeters and the other one's 48. It just gives you, a bigger watch in there. So anyway, there are a lot of women's versions of this watch as well as men's, and it's 17,800, which is like, hey, that's that's near. And if I sell my collection, I can have an F.P. Journe. That might be a consideration. Now, this next one, these are the other series and collections in F.P. Journe's, but they tend to be versions of ones that are in the Classique collection. The limited series, then you have this is an anniversary series there of a chronograph. The boutique series has a number of different styles that are available only in the F.P. Journe boutiques. In other words, you can't order them you have to go into the boutique to get one, or maybe order it from the boutique. Then you have the jewelry collection. Now, the jewelry collection, I think you see most of it in the Elegante, but they're not showing in this. They have That's one of the tourbillon souverains with all of these diamonds around it. So I've already seen one that went over $1 million, so you can see that it's really expensive. Then there's the Black Label collection, and all of the watches in the Black Label collection are you have platinum cases, and then black and white. The Black Label collection. And all of these are samples. There's more in both the Boutique collection and the Black Label collection, but they're all ones we looked at in the Classique collection. Anyway, well, I have two that I absolutely love, and I recommend them if you can get your mitts on one. Like I said, I was fortunate and got both of mine before the prices went nuts. And I really can't blame it on F.P. Journe, because he just made these watches that everybody wanted to have at some point, and then the prices just went crazy on it. But maybe they'll come down, who knows. In the meantime, you might take a look at some of the Elegantes. Yes, they're quartz, but they're really interesting quartz. If you got an F.P. Journe, I'd like to hear from you, what you think of it. And just what you think of the watch in general. There's lots more to it. I could go on forever, but for now, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. It's an opportunity to subscribe if you like. Until next time, this is Bill Sanders for Watch Art Sci, the art and science of watch collection.